Was I the only one that thought this episode felt like just like 5 minutes? Like, I sat down, have a cup of coffee like I normally do, you know how it is, and I watched it. I was like, what? The episode's already over? Like, the ending song started playing, I'm like, please, why? Like, I really hate this. I really, 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 really hate when I get into a series, because it's so hard to resist reading the manga. It's something I always say, and it's very relevant and true, because I think many of you can agree with me. When you're getting into something, like if it's an anime, and you know that there's more material that you could go out of your way and read or whatever, it's very hard to stop yourself from wanting to do that, because this series is so good. And when I was sitting down watching this episode, I was like, come on, Chibi. You can go out of your way. You can just read a chapter or two. It won't harm. And I was thinking to myself, like, no, I can't do that, because many have told me to stay anime only, because they want to see my reaction to things, and they said that the anime is doing a very good job with depicting the manga. So I'm just like, okay, I'll hold back. It's just very hard. It's very hard because of how good this series is. And I'm like, why does the episodes have to feel just so short? It really does. And it's not because it was a bad episode or it did lack content. It just felt short because I was getting so into it that it passed on so quickly. I was like, no, don't end so soon. So, yeah, that's basically my thoughts on this episode. Like, my overall thoughts on the episode. But let's get into one other thing before I get into the details of the episode. It's gotten quite cold recently, as you can see. I mean, putting on a jacket and stuff. So I'm kind of curious. How's your weather, guys? I mean, let me know in the comments below. I'm very curious because, it's been getting really, really cold here, which is fine. I'm glad that we're finally done with, summer and spring and all that. I'm glad, the cold weather is finally here. Just tell me, how's the weather over where you guys live currently right now at the time of you watching this video? Anyways, getting into the episode, though. Basically, this episode, to many surprise, it focuses on Ellis's character and getting to actually see more about what started it all, how he came about in the first place, and to see why he seems so distant and why he doesn't really give Chisei many details about himself in the first place. So let's back up, actually. Before I go any further with that, let's back up and kind of clarify the start of this. So, the episode, it's basically about Chisei getting her wand. And we know that this has been building up for a while now, for about 4 or 5 episodes now. It's been building up that Chisei eventually was going to go back to the tree where the dragon turned into a tree. She was going to go back to that tree, get a wand and all that, and that was going to be a big focus for her development, characterization, stuff like that. However, even though we have the start of that, we shift over to Ellis's character and his backstory, which comes at a very big surprise. I was very surprised by the way that was done, and I was a little bit, I'm going to be honest here, I was a little bit upset that we kind of went away from what Chisei was doing. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Ellis's character, I want more of him, I want to know more about him and all of that, but I wanted to see the wand making scene, because that seemed like a very symbolic scene that would have really developed Chisei in a certain way, and I was told on social media, Twitter to be exact, that apparently that this episode, it would not dive into Chisei, and next week we should look forward to that. So, it didn't skip it, it didn't off-screen it, didn't off-screen, Chisei's wand making or whatever. It wasn't off-screen. That's what was clarified to me by, people that have read the original source on social media. So, if you were worried and all that, and you thought that we were not going to get to see the wand making scene or whatever with Chisei, apparently we're getting that next week. So, I'm just letting you all know that, so don't freak out, because I was freaking out, I ain't gonna lie. I was a little bit upset. I was like, no, that sucks. I wanted to see, the wand making scene, because it seems like it'd be very important to the world of, the ancient Magus's bride. And then seeing how I was told that, I'm like, okay, that makes me breathe a relief. I'm like, thankfully, we're actually going to get to see that. So anyways, let's talk about Ellis's backstory. So, the backstory overall, it's very strange and mysterious. And it does go and let us know that this series is very rich when it comes to its world. And what I mean by that is that the world of this series doesn't just revolve around Chisei. Now, let me kind of explain where I'm going with this. Normally, when a series comes out, like, manga, anime, or just any form of literature, usually the main character is the main focus of the series. Basically, the entirety of what happens in the series revolves around the main character. But in this case, you could see from this episode, and little glimpses we've had of previous episodes, that the concept of the series, or the world of the series, doesn't just revolve around Chisei. You have it to where the writer is willing to focus on other aspects of the series, other characters, and let us know that there's way more to the story than just Chisei's story, her character arc, and all of that. There's way more to this world, especially when it comes to all the folklore, myths, and, these fairies and stuff, to, Ellis and all that, and then, Lindell. There's just so many different aspects of this series that are so rich in detail that you could just, spend a long time just to dive into, because if the writer really wanted to, the writer could probably make a full-on big arc on just Ellis and all that, finding out more about him, his, the way he came about, why he is like he is, spend a big long time on it, and we wouldn't even really need to focus on Chisei, because there's just so much content here. There's so much detail, so much content, that the writer doesn't need to just focus on Chisei to keep the story interesting, which is what many writers usually have to do. They have to focus on their main character to keep the story interesting, which is one of the big reasons why I actually like Boku no Hero so much, is because Horikoshi, the writer, he's able to dive into all these individual characters and keep it very interesting and give them the spotlight. It's one of the main reasons why I praise this series so much, is because Horikoshi is such a good writer, and I'm noticing that this series is kind of slightly doing similar things to that, showcasing that there is a lot more going on here than what's going on with Chisei and Ellis, and that there is just so many things that the writer could take the story in any direction. So anyways, besides all of that though, we get to see that at one point in time, at the beginning of this episode, Ellis was in the middle of the, wilderness. It was a snowy wilderness. I want to assume he's somewhere up near, Russia, somewhere deep part of Russia, or maybe in, Sweden, Norway, somewhere around in there. I have no idea. He was definitely way up there, since, this series usually takes place in, Europe and stuff. So I want to assume he was, way up north and all that. Now, I do know that the creature that was in this episode, the Selkie, I think I'm pronouncing the creature right, that was, the familiar of Lindell in this episode, was a Scottish fairy. Now, I don't know all of the backstory and stuff to this Scottish fairy. I just know because I recognize the name and all that. When I used to look up stuff to, Seven Deadly Sins, I used to look up, different myths and lore and stuff. Me and a couple of buddies of mine, we used to dive into, Furies and stuff for Taizai, and so that's how I recognize that name. But I don't know all the details to it, so I don't know exactly the weight of what that fairy is actually capable of. However, I do know that, once again, one of the big aspects of the Ancient Magus' Bride is that it incorporates real-life, myths and folklore that's in our world, stories and stuff, fairy tales and stuff, into this world, which I truly appreciate. It's something I really like and I find very fascinating, because if there's one thing I love, besides anime and manga, it's myths, folklore, and all stuff like that. I love that type of stuff. It's stuff I really love, and seeing something like that incorporated into this episode, once again, just puts a smile on my face. So getting back in Ellis, though, he was somewhere up north and all that, and at the beginning of the episode, he's attacked by wolves, and you see how he's kind of trying to defend himself and all that. He doesn't, from what we can see, he doesn't eat the wolves, because after that scene is done, we move over to Lindell, and we found out that, Ellis comes in, and he's like, I'm hungry, and just sits down and all that, which shows that he didn't eat the wolves. Unless he ate the wolves and he was still hungry, regardless of whatever it may be, though, it shows that Ellis in that moment was like an innocent child. He was a newborn, because when he takes the form of a human, he takes the form of a child, which is a big question right here. Now, we could assume that Ellis didn't really know much, because when he came about, he's like, I woke up and all that, and I was just here, I don't really know much. He couldn't really remember anything at all. So, it was like he was a newborn child, a blank slate. Even though he had the aspect of an apparition, like a fairy or something, he had flesh like a regular human being. He had aspects of both. He was human and a fairy, which is very weird. And if I had to assume anything, I'm taking a guess here. I'm assuming that after what we've gotten in recent episodes of the Ancient Magus' Bride, especially when it comes to chimeras and stuff like that, that's been one of the big aspects of the series, I want to assume that Ellis is a chimera. That is what I'm assuming. Some form of a chimera, maybe not exactly a chimera, but something similar to it, maybe different myth when it comes to chimeras, because with the theme of the series, with how it's been fusing these different creatures together, fairies and human body parts together to make a chimera, I'm going to assume, since Ellis is basically both, that he is some form of chimera. That's what I'm assuming is happening here, and that's probably why he doesn't remember anything, is because he was just fused together with a bunch of different creatures, and that's what he is right now. That's what I'm assuming. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm assuming. Now, anyways, though, we could also assume that if he is a fusion of something, like if he once was a human, and he now has became what he was, we could assume that he might have been a child. At one point in time, when he was still human, he was probably a child. At that moment of time, he was a child, and that was the last thing he remembered. And the reason why he now takes an adult form is because he is now an adult. Many centuries have passed, like a lot of time has passed, so it makes a lot of sense why he would take an adult form now, and why he seems a little bit more mature or bigger than he did in the past, especially when he goes into his true form. This is very, very apparent when you look at his true form in this episode, because when he's wandering over to Lyndall and all that, he is like his, like, standard, like, demon form looking thing that we saw a couple episodes back, but he was a lot skinnier, a lot scrawnier and all that. Even though he was taller than an average person, he still was very skinny and smaller than how his true form was. We saw a couple episodes back, which indicates that, once again, he was a child, he was a newborn, he was very new, and he still had a lot of time to grow, and that's where he is at now. He is a lot older, a lot bigger, that's what I'm saying. But anyways, he was hungry, and we know that he could eat regular food, but I want to take note of something that was obvious in this episode, and I don't think I'm the only one to notice this, but when he said he was hungry, and Lyndall gave him some food, like a bowl of soup or whatever, like reindeer stew, the man looked over at Lyndall's neck, and we know for a fact that we saw a scene, like last week or whatever, when we saw Chibi trying to confront Alice and learn something. Chibi was looked at by Alice. Alice looked at her when she was sleeping, and it looked like he was trying to devour her or something, like he wanted to eat her. And in myth, folklore, and stuff like that, a lot of, demons and fairies and stuff, they used to lure out children or people just to devour them. That's just a big thing when it comes to stories like that, and I could definitely see Ellis being a creature like that. Since he's like a creature of darkness or whatever, he would definitely fit that theme. And maybe he has these urges that he fights against constantly, and maybe that was an urge he got when he looked over at Lyndall, and he was looking at the food in the bowl, and looked at him, he looked at his neck, which may be because he wanted to eat the man, or he craved his blood, or whatever it may be. Maybe he had that aspect, and he was like, ooh, I want that. So I wanted to point that out. Maybe that is why Ellis looked at Chibi so weird when she was sleeping, and he was like on top of her. That's what I'm assuming. But moving past that, though, let's also talk about the fact that you have it to where he actually learned magic from Lyndall. So Lyndall, he was the actual master to Ellis. Ellis learned everything from him, which was really cool. I was very surprised about that. That threw me for a loop. I'm like, whoa, Ellis learned everything he knows from this man, and it just like, it explains a lot by the interactions why he was even able to hang out with him in the first place. But on top of that, though, it now explains why he looked at Chibi like a granddaughter. So let me kind of explain this relationship. So Lyndall looks at Ellis as a son. He raised him like, a son, because he was an adult at that time. He's lived for a long time, and, Ellis, he was like a child in that moment. He was basically a child. So you had it to where Lyndall raised him like a father figure, and he was the son, and then now that Chibi's now the apprentice to Ellis, it makes it to where he's like the grandfather of this little group, which is really cool. So you have like a father-daughter relationship going on. That's what I think is being confirmed here. And speaking of relationships, once again, I am very happy with how self-aware this series is of Chibi and Ellis's relationship, and how it's very weird and awkward. It could really just disturb many if you really take a moment to think about it, because it's been a big topic of debate. I discussed this in my last episode review. Many have discussed that when it comes to Chibi and Ellis's relationship, is very unhealthy. It's just something that's very creepy. I mean, especially when he was like, hey, you'll be my bride and all that. I mean, even the series is called The Ancient Magus' Bride. It's just a very weird relationship between these two because of the age difference, but also how he's starting to, take care of Chibi. It's just very weird. It's like brainwashing or whatever, and I could see why many would actually have a problem with that. However, it does seem that the writer is very self-aware of this, and is actually implementing this into the story, and you can even see it in this episode. Like, Lyndall asked a very hard question to Chibi, like, your relationship, why are you letting Ellis tame you like a reindeer or something? Like, why are you doing that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And Chibi realizes this is a little bit weird, but she explains why she's doing this is because all her life, she had everyone push her away. She was the outcast, the black sheep. She was someone that was not wanted. Her own mother told her that she did not want her, which, that's trauma. That's massive, massive trauma to give to a child. That messes them up. And so, automatically, with all of that and everything else that happened in her life, shifting from place to place and all that, it's obvious she'd be very messed up. She wanted attachment. Us, human beings, we want attachment. That's how we are. We are social creatures. No, regardless of how antisocial you are, regardless of how you want to be alone, don't want to interact with people, at the end of the day, you will find some way to interact with others. Let's think about the internet, okay? Even if, okay, you do not want to interact with people in the real world, you still will interact with people online. It's just common sense. Because we are social creatures and we do seek people to be around us, or at least someone to talk to. And in this case, Chisei seeked that. She wanted interaction. She wanted to be with someone. She at least wanted someone to accept her, for she could talk with them, whatever. And all her life since she's been pushed away, she learned and picked up on this trait, a very unhealthy trait, that she shouldn't complain, she shouldn't ask questions, she shouldn't talk too much, and she picked up that trait. And so when Alice finally accepted her, brought her in and all that, she didn't want to be clingy. She didn't want to, ask him too many questions, for he would just shove her away. And that's why she, quieted down, and she didn't say anything, why she accepts it, because she is at the very least very happy that he is someone that is taking care of her and not shoving her away. So it makes a lot of sense. I understand Chisei's point of view and all that, but once again, I just am very thankful that the series is very self-aware of how unhealthy those two characters' relationships are. Anyways, let's also talk about the new character that was introduced at the end of the episode. Oh man, Chibi. I'm just gonna say Chibi. Whoa, I like her. I'm just going to say I like her a lot. Now, not just design-wise, but personality-wise, fan service aside, I just really like her. She's a really cool character, and I like her relationship with Alice now. She was kind of taking care of him, and then also on top of that, how she looked at him like a child. It's just very sweet. I like the character so far. Hopefully this isn't the last time we see her. Hopefully we get to see her in present day. But that's about it. I want to end this video here, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy this week's episode of The Ancient Magus' Bride? Did you hate this episode? If you enjoy my content, please subscribe, and if you like this video, please leave a like. And one last thing before I end this video, so I've been saying this for the past couple of videos I've been uploading, but I want to say it here just to give quick clarification, because I know many of you Chibis out there don't watch every single video upload. I know how it is. I mean, you may only care about The Ancient Magus' Bride, and you don't probably care about anything else I upload. I understand that, but I want to kind of give an FYI. So, if you have been noticing, like, you've not been getting any notifications for when I upload videos, or any of your other people you subscribe to, not just me, okay? Let's just say there's another person that you're caring about, and you want to watch their content, and you're not getting notifications for them, but you want to get notifications. There is a bell icon next to the subscribe button. You have to click that to get notifications. So even if you don't care about my notifications, I'm just doing this to help others out as well, because I just want to be nice and all that and make sure everybody's aware of what's going on here. If you're not getting notifications for anybody that's on YouTube, go to next to the subscribe button and click the bell icon if you want to get notifications by them. For some reason, the subscribe button doesn't really work anymore. It really just comes down to the bell icon, just letting you know. So yeah, just giving a brief FYI. Love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.